Every writer needs somewhere to keep track of everything. Take that from someone who has spent years trying to dig herself out of loose notebook pages full of world building info. Every year I get a little bit closer to succeeding, but I also get a little bit closer to just burning it all to the ground. Enter Campfire Blaze, and I mean the tool, not an actual campfire, tempted as I may be. So, is Blaze the miracle solution for you? Hell if I know. Writing isn't a one-size-fits-all process, and a tool that works well for one writer might not work well for another. That's why this isn't a review, it's a demo. Whether you already have Blaze and want an overview, or whether you want to know if this could be the golden solution for you as a writer, I'm going to cover all of the features of this tool to help you figure things out. Now, disclaimer, this video is sponsored by Campfire, but I tried the product before agreeing, and this is an honest demo. Now, first things first, what is Campfire Blaze? Campfire Blaze is the successor to Campfire Pro and is in the glorious new space of web apps. It's a tool designed to help make writers' lives easier, from tracking world building, timelines, and characters, to mapping out arcs and relationships, to the brand new Manuscript tool. Now, if you watched my demo for Campfire Pro, you'll recall that I am a cloud kitten through and through. Downloadable desktop apps? What is this, the 1800s? And so I've been excited about Blaze for a while now because this bad boy is a cloud app. With that said, web apps aren't for everyone. For example, if you're a Twitter addict, a dinosaur, or you live in the mountains, this may not sound ideal. But rest assured that they are hard at work on a desktop version of Blaze, slated for release sometime between now and June of 2021. So that will bridge some of the gap as it will allow for offline work. And they will be starting work on a... Why did I think I was going to be able to catch that? And they will be starting work on a mobile app in the coming months as well. So this application is well on its way to kind of a Google Docs style setup where you can use it without internet on your desktop, work on your phone while you're in the line at the grocery store, because it's the only place we ever go now, and even work from a library computer. And all it takes is a brief internet connection to sync everything up. Now let's talk features, starting with the familiar and ending with a shiny new feature that I think will be a game changer for a lot of people. So first things first, starting an account is quick and easy. No credit card, social security number, or soul selling required. All you really need to do is put in a name, and more importantly, go to the How Did You Hear About Us section, click YouTube, and then mark Cloud Kitten Chronicles. If you skip that last step, your computer will catch fire. Now, with account signup out of the way, we can blaze right into it. This is what you'll see on the top dashboard level of Blaze, and is how you can organize different worlds and stories. From here, you can either start a new project, or you can import one. So if you've been working on Campfire Pro, and the thought of having to start from scratch exhausts you, you're in luck. Just open the app, hop over to the Campfire drop-down, and hit Export Story to Blaze. Take the resulting file and you can upload it to the dashboard. Now, something to keep in mind is that the timeline has changed a lot between Pro and Blaze, so that doesn't transition seamlessly, but more on that later. Now let's cover some of the project-centered features. First up, my all-time favorite, auto-saving. If I don't have auto-saving in some form, it is an absolute guarantee that I will at some point lose at least 3 hours of work, and subsequently rage quit the project for 1 to infinite days. Rest in peace, edgy poem from middle school. Autosave is a lifesaver, and this is like autosave on rockets because it's in the cloud. So your whole computer could fall into a barrel of pickled cucumbers and your work would be safe off in the cloud somewhere. And this triggers every 10 seconds, so even if your power goes out, odds are you won't lose more than half a sentence. Though I do still recommend that you periodically export everything you care about as an extra backup measure. I've never lost work in the cloud, but you know... Next up, we have deletion. Deleting a project initially scared me because it was way too easy, and as someone who frequently hits buttons without actually reading the messages or considering the implications, that's less than ideal. But I was really happy to find that deleting a project doesn't automatically wipe your manuscript, articles, or world building off of the face of the earth. because you have a library, which brings us, of course, to library. This contains elements from your projects. If you delete a project, those elements stay here until permanently deleted. You can also filter by project and article and share elements between projects. I'm writing a trilogy, so this allows me to share common elements between different books. This is also nice because sometimes you have a project that doesn't pan out, but the characters and world building could be useful for something in the future. This allows you to easily upcycle those to a different project. Next up, we have linking. If you're juggling multiple series or universes and want to cut back on the clutter, another great feature is project linking. You can create a project with your series or universe name, and then open the links panel, and within that, create a project for each story. Now, the nice thing about this feature is when you add a nested project, you can select what information it inherits from the parent project. So if you have multiple stories in the same universe, you could share the species and magic system, but keep characters and timelines separate. Which brings us to sharing. Now, your projects will always be private by default, even if you're on the free version of Blaze, and will only be visible to people if you share the project or the specific articles via email. You can also share articles such as characters, items, and maps using a link generated using the share button. And a Blaze account isn't required to view the link. Now, you can't make your project openly available to the general public at this time, but this setup works well if you want to share something with critique partners or beta readers. Next up, we have exporting. Exporting multiple articles at once is pretty easy, and you can export multiple to the same document. And I expect we'll see a project-wide export feature added at some point in the future. Next up, we have themes. Now, themes allow you to set colors and backgrounds for a project and are great for getting that creative spark to kindle your writing even on days when you aren't feeling it, especially if you're into aesthetics. And anything you make can be saved as a template for easy application later. There are also some pre-existing themes that you can load in either permanently or as a base to work off of to customize your own, if like me, you don't want to go through and select colors for all the different buttons. One of the other cool things about themes is that you can have your project home, and whatever theme you set there is your default. But you can then change or set different themes for individual characters or chapters. If an article doesn't have a set theme, it inherits it from your project home. Otherwise, it uses whatever you set. So you could make some characters look super cool and unique. And then you have your project home, where you can find sexy stats like how many words and articles you have in each module, a notepad to quickly jot down project notes, a recent section, an easy to navigate index of your articles, and this handy pinned section, which will display any articles you've clicked pin on. And I think the pin section is super handy for if you have unfinished articles you want to revisit later, or if you just have articles that you frequent a lot. Next up, we have tags. Essentially, anywhere you can type text, you can type an @ to tag any article you've made. And if you haven't made one but need one, you can do a quick add by clicking New Element. Once you've added the tag, you can click on it to go directly to the article and see its details. And this is super handy for quickly grabbing context. Now let's talk about panels. So these bad boys are everywhere, so I'm gonna just give a rundown once so you can follow along later. So panels are fun little boxes, and they can be moved around and resized, and they contain handy information. Now, I'm not gonna lie, one of the things that drove me a bit crazy about Campfire Pro was how hard it was to align the panels perfectly. But we're in luck because Blaze has a sexy new grid snapping mechanism, which is so nice. So you don't end up with panels that are a few pixels out of alignment. And this is the setting, so you can set the snapping to different levels of spacing. And this really helps when it comes to customizing the layout. As with Campfire Pro, you have multiple options for panel types that you can add. First up, we have basic info. These are preloaded options that can make it easy to fill out info when you're not really sure what you want to add or when you want to go fast. And these info slots are specific to what you're creating, so characters and items will have different presets. And the panel only shows what you select, so you have no clutter of unused boxes. Next up, we have text, and this is a nice one-click spot to put any text your heart desires, from listing out all the fire-related terminology that they will be using incessantly, to marking alternate name possibilities because throwy weapon thingy just doesn't have a great ring to it. Next, we have stats. Now, numbers are scary, but if they're your thing, then you can add them all here. Does your character care deeply about the dwindling numbers of wild gongoozlers? You could use stats to mark how many of them remain in the wild. And I especially recommend that you add these to your main characters and fill it out, because that has some fun character arc applications that I'll cover in a bit. Next up, we have images. And this is where you can put all of those aesthetic images that you've gathered so you can convince yourself that that Pinterest binge was productive after all. Then we have lists, and this is just a series of labels and descriptions that you can use for anything and everything your heart desires, because who doesn't like lists? And then we have tables, and this is new and shiny, and it might not have a ton of applications, but when you need a table, you need a table. And finally, we have links, and this is where you can connect other relevant characters, places, things, and more, so you can easily access them. You can also filter by keyword and type of link, and even add a little note to clarify the connection to give context. Articles also come equipped with pages, so you can put different panels on different pages to further keep things organized, if you're an organized kind of person. And if you think that sounds like a lot of time spent adding and arranging panels, then you'd be on the page I was on when I started. But lo and behold, the app has a handy solution for that. And that is templates. So with templates, you can save panel arrangements and content for specific article types as a template, which can then be set as a default for that article type or be applied with a few clicks where you need it. And if you apply a template to an already existing article, it won't erase the existing pages, but will add the new ones from the template, so you don't have to worry about overwriting anything. Just don't mindlessly mash the load template button 5 billion times like I did, or you'll find that your character suddenly has 5 billion backstories. Oops. Now, where might these panels be useful, you are probably asking, because you are astute like that. The answer is everywhere. So first off, let's talk about characters and other data tracking. For example, locations, items, cultures, philosophies, religions, and species. These modules all work essentially the same at their core, and we already pretty much covered them while looking at panels. So in these modules, you can make folders in which you can make articles in which you can have multiple pages. If you don't have a template set to default, there's a default that articles will spin up with, which gives some handy presets. And it's all pretty straightforward. I'm not gonna walk you through everything step by step, because I believe in you. Now, some of the modules are a little different, so I'll dive into those a touch deeper. First up, we have languages. Now, I have never made a language, and I don't really understand how they work. I mean, hell, I barely understand how English works, and I speak it. So like other articles, you have the page setup, which you can customize to your heart's content. But it also has some language-specific presets. For example, you have the phonetics page for symbols, sounds, and modifiers. The dictionary, which is honestly so damn useful because if you forget a curse word 2 chapters down the line, you can't really search your Word doc to remember the word. But in the dictionary, you can search the English word and get your translation. And then there's an overview page where you can add things like history, related languages, and common phrases. And you can also get creative here. For example, you could add a typo language that exists to catalog your common typos, so that in the final stages of edits, you can do a doc-wide search and correct them. Because if you're anything like me, you have a long list of words that your brain is convinced it knows how to spell, and your brain is a liar. Next up, we have magic, and who doesn't love magic? Especially when it's a nice, fleshed out magic system. I mean, not that there's anything wrong with limp magic systems, but I personally like my magic good and hard. But regardless, this module has you covered. Now, I don't write fantasy at the moment, so I haven't tested this module out in any sort of real-life capacity. But the unique thing about the magic system is the guidebook. And here you can add spells, potions, or instructions for how one might obtain the blessings from each of the divine cats of destiny. You know, the usual. It looks useful to this sci-fi writer, but what do I know? Next up, we have systems and relationships. Now, these are 2 almost identical modules, and they're good for making flowcharts and other things in which you'd love to see bubbles connected by colored lines. So in systems, you can add any type of article and just go wild, and you have the ability to add pages with all of the standard panel-y goodness and customizability. So for example, you could use this to show the flow of command of your complicated government system, and then have a page that covers the history of how this came about. In relationships, this feature is dedicated just to characters and making webs of connections between them. In both modules, the line colors can be defined and changed, and you can even have the line show an arrow to indicate the direction it was dragged from. And each article has 4 nodes to which you can attach lines from the nodes of other articles. And you'll also find this exact node, line dragging, color changing, labeling setup is also in timelines. Next up, we have maps. Now you can't create maps inside of Blaze at the moment, but the map feature will help you add information and pins to your existing maps. You can also create new layers, so you could have a naked version and then one with labels, and if you're really fancy, maybe even one with climate or roads or Khajiit caravan routes. You can also pin maps to your map, so you can have a big world map that links to regional little tiny maps. This is just maps within maps. And then we have Encyclopedia, and the Encyclopedia is just a catch-all for everything and anything you cannot find a more specific home for. It can also be handy if you're in a hurry and don't want to try to categorize whatever idea just hit you in the shower because it's already threatening to slip away. And remember, loose notebook pages are not your friend. And hey, once that mobile app drops, you can even add to this straight from the shower, because that is some next level writing, and waterproof phones are a thing. So here the customization works a little differently. At the bottom you have a bar that has different elements you can add, and it will insert those. Next up we have timelines. So timelines can be used for outlining or tracking multiple POVs and where they line up, or just marking events in your story's history. Now the timeline module can feel a little overwhelming at times, but Blaze has made a ton of improvements to the old Campfire Pro version, and they're always looking for ways to improve. But this feature allows you to map out infinite timelines, adding events, linking events, tying characters to events, and showing everything in a nice visible format. It also comes with a handy focus feature, so you can add far back events into your world while staying zoomed in on the time frame you most care about. And this directly ties into arcs. So the arc tracking shows you what timeline events your articles are linked in, and gives you tools to track changes throughout those events. So this module has a page setup, much like the article modules, but where each event is a tab full of pages. So page 1 is for the panels your article has tied to it, so you can mark any details that have changed as of the current event. So for example, if they changed their hairstyle or got a new scar, you can add it to the info panel starting at that event. Page 3 is for notes, and it's fully customizable. Bet you thought I skipped page 2, but I'm just saving the best for last, because page 2 is where all of the magic is. Here, you can change the value of any stats you've added on the article's main page, and it will graph out the change over time. And if you hover over the points of the graph, it'll tell you what events happened at each point. This has tons of applications, from tracking emotional change and power progression, to injuries and style changes, because characters who don't change are boring. Though it can also be used to show the change of an item, like how a weapon might have evolved over time, or a location which has been claimed by different groups over the years. You can even use this to help avoid reader fatigue. Basically, you could create a character called Reader, with stats like gore level, fun and humor, then tag them in all of the on-page events and mark what emotional state you'd like the reader to be in due to that scene. That way you can at a glance see what parts of the story might be too heavy for too long, or where you may swing from sadness to fun and games too quickly, which can cause emotional whiplash. So there's lots of ways you can get creative with these modules. And now we come to the shiny new tool that Campfire Pro does not have. So Blaze has an entire section for working with your manuscript, and it is sexy as hell. I didn't think that anything could coax me away from my precious Google Docs, but Blaze just launched, and already it's got it beat on multiple fronts, and it's fully integrated into everything else. You can easily find all of the information you need without having to open a new tab or app, in which case you'll probably accidentally end up on YouTube or Twitter, because muscle memory is a thing, and it is not always helpful. So I'm going to break this down into some key features. First up, we have organization. So in your sidebar, you have the ability to make folders, nest folders, and make documents. And this has tons of applications for the well-organized, and at least a few for the less organized like me. And then when you open the chapter, you can set name, subtitle, image for inspiration, and there's even a whole handy little section on the side for chapter description. As an outliner, this is super nice because I can just put my scene description right there on the side. You can also use tags here, so you could have a list of all of the characters in that scene, or list out locations. Next up, we have Notepad. So there are technically two notepads. The first is a project-wide notepad, which you can access from here, but also from articles, and where it's the same wherever you access it. But you also have a notepad for every document you add, which is great for chapter or scene-specific notes. Next up, we have the brand new typewriter feature, which literally just dropped. And it's really simple, but also really important. And it's a little toggle up at the top, and that basically just scrolls the page with you as you write. And that way you don't have to manually scroll. Next up, we have exporting and importing. Here you can import docx files, which will be converted, matching formatting as closely as possible. You can also export to Word, PDF, HTML, and rich text. And you can also select multiple folders or files to export, which then bundles them together. So you could nest all of your folders in a single manuscript folder and export with one click or export more selectively. Next up, we have theme. Much like with other articles, you can override your default theme by setting a theme on each chapter. This is really nice if you love to write in dark mode, but you want your project to be super bright. You could also give your chapters a paper background if you're feeling spicy. Next up, we have focus mode, and this is a handy little button that hides away all of the clutter on your screen. And my favorite part is that if you click on the text styles button, you can set different styles for the focus mode versus the normal. So if you find that writing in Comic Sans actually does help you, but you're too ashamed to let others see, you can hide that dirty little secret away in focus mode. I mean, not that I've ever considered such things, but you know, you do you. Next up, we have stats, because who doesn't love watching that word count grow? Me, because I'm an overwriter, and so I have to keep that number locked down. But even in my case, it's important for me to see what my word count is at all times. And then you have the manuscript stats that give you a story-wide word count and chapter count. And that's just really nice because Google Docs doesn't have that, and I was using an Excel sheet, needing to update my word count each time, and then having the Excel sheet sum it up, and it's nice to have that built in. Next up, we have sharing. So this tool was built for collabing. All you do is click on the sharing tab and you can generate a view-only link that non-Blaze users can see. But you can also share with an email, either in view mode or in edit mode. In edit mode, the other user can edit the chapter and leave comments. In viewing mode, they can only view comments and the chapter. Though the Blaze team is currently working on a comment-only mode, which very well might be live by the time you're watching this. And on every autosave, which happens every 10 seconds, edits made by one collaborator are synced with the other. Next up, we have commenting, and this is one of my favorite parts. So both you and editor collaborators can leave comments on the doc. You can then reply to comments, mark as read, close, permanently delete, and best of all, save. So when you get one of those nice compliment type comments, you can save it to bask in it later, but when you get one of those comments pointing out a clunky line, you can banish it to the trash as soon as the issue is fixed. And last but certainly not least, one of the best things about the manuscript tool is tagging. When you import a doc or type a name that is tied to an article, the code will auto tag it, which you can disable in settings. This means that clicking the blue highlight will pull up information related to the article in this convenient side panel. You can also tag articles anywhere by typing @ and searching for the item. And if you want to quickly check for something without tagging it, you can just click the Find Element button and it'll open anything you select right in the navigation bar. You don't even need to open a new tab and risk finding your way to YouTube when you definitely meant to find out what color that one character's eyes were. And locked tags, so where it has that @ symbol, come with a nice bonus feature that I will surely overuse, and that's automatically updating. So let's say I have a character I haven't named yet. I could do a quick article ad for insert name of Jordan's right-hand man here. Definitely not something I'm currently doing. And I can then tag that wherever I need his name. And then, once I come up with a name, I just update the name in that article, and everywhere I have it tagged will update. And this won't apply to auto tags, only to locked in ones. So if you change the name of an article that's been auto tagged, it will just be untagged. So that's really freaking great for auto updating all of those character names whenever you decide to change them, which is all the time. And rest assured that the @ symbols don't export with the docs, so you don't have to worry about them being all over your page. And now, finally, let's talk pricing. One of the really great things about Blaze is the module setup. The pricing is extremely flexible, and you don't have to pay for anything you don't plan on using. So if, like me, you write sci-fi, you get to save some money by kicking the magic module to the curb. All modules can also be used for free with limitations, and if you need a module but only for something small, you can add it for a month and remove it after, and you'll still have access to anything you added using the module. This means that the pricing is entirely flexible around not only what you're doing, but when you're doing it, with none of your content locked away. And if you stop your subscription altogether, you can still access all of your hard work. And if there's a module you know you're always going to need, you can save some money by grabbing a yearly membership, which gets you the equivalent of 2 free months. Or you could even grab a lifetime membership, which is honestly really rare in subscription products these days. You can also get 3 free months of Blaze if you owned Campfire Pro before Blaze launched. There's also a system where you can gift yearly subscriptions of any and all modules, so you can put that on your wish list. And you can invite friends to earn free lifetime modules if enough friends sign up. This is honestly the most flexible subscription system I have ever seen, and I love it, and I really wish that more companies would do it. So cloud apps are the future, but Blaze is still new to the game. So if you're looking for a product that won't change over the coming years, or are deeply frustrated by the occasional bugs or rough edges, this might not be the app for you just yet. But I think that the Blaze team is doing an exceptional job. While scripting this video, I reported every bug that crossed my path, and each one has been fixed within a few days of me reporting it, which is lightning fast. And this being a web app means there's no waiting for patches to ship and forever kicking updates down the road, because what sort of monster hits update the first time the box shows up? Nope, all of these fixes just magically appear, so if you hit a bug one day, it may very well be gone the next, which happened to me. So just take a second to report issues you hit, and the team will surprise you with their speed. You can also submit feature requests, as well as seeing the status and voting on existing feature requests. And if there's anything you need help with, there's a super helpful Discord server. The Blaze team clearly cares deeply about this product, and I believe that as long as people take the time to report bugs and submit feedback, there'll be no stopping this app's evolution. They already have so much great stuff slated for the coming months, and I can't wait to see how the app grows. In summary, I think anyone with the average patience for tech shouldn't have any real issues, and the app will only get more stable with time. And if you tend to get overwhelmed by too many buttons, I think Blaze's more streamlined design would suit you well, and starting when it's a little on the slim side feature-wise could be a great way to adapt to a new tool. So give the free version a try and see how it meshes with you. You can find links in the description, and don't hesitate to drop a comment with any and all questions. And if you like Campfire, they also have a YouTube channel where Levi gives some awesome writing advice with a fun editing style. So I'll link that, as well as a collab I did with them, down in the description as well. And that was it for this video. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, I will see you in the next one.